Hi everyone, welcome to another extraordinary YJP workshop. It is really wonderful to see you all here. Hands up if this is your first YJP event. Welcome, amazing. Hands up if you've been to one before. Give them a round of applause, there you go. But guys, it's really incredible whether it's your first YJP event or your second or your 100th. I want to tell you something that YJP has been smashing it in the most wonderful way. We had a full crowd here last week. We're here again. Next week, we've got a Shavua dinner coming up. We've got a panel all night, which there's flyers as you walk out. Make sure to take one. You don't want to miss it. My name is Moshe Khan, and I've been running YJP since 2013. I'm the proud founder of it, and it's really wonderful to see on an ongoing basis so many young, dynamic, wonderful, awesome, incredible people, namely you guys in the audience, who just keep coming back for mingling, getting together, and enjoying each other's company. So give yourself a round of applause. Really wonderful. I want to begin by firstly thanking Alex Theatre. I want to tell you something. We've literally been gifted this venue for already. It's our third time over here. We're feeling very at home. I don't know if Alan's in this room, but Alan, thank you so much. And we look forward to having many more events over here. I want to thank Sean, who's doing our videographer, who's doing an incredible job. Noam, who does our great photos over there. Thank you, Noam. We try to support young Jewish professionals. That's our goal. And tonight's event was going to be at KPMG, but we outgrew KPMG. So we've got a very dear friend of mine, Mr. Daniel Hausman, who also happens to be the chairman of Yeshiva Beth Rivka board, does a great job. Thank you for all your volunteering. Thank you for all your time, for all your commitment, for all your love, for all your passion. And please put your hands together very quickly for Daniel, who's going to speak on behalf of KPMG.
Thank you, Moshe, and thanks to Alex for coming. And I will be brief, I promise. I wanted to say just a couple of words. Firstly, on behalf of KPMG, we're obviously very proud of our association with YJP. We were keen to, we were keen to host this as we did one of the last events in 2019. It was a year ago. I think it was 24th of February 2020. But we were delighted to do it, and we were hoping to host it tonight. But we were keen on partnering and glad that we outgrew it and had it here. I wanted to just give a quick plug to YJP and the work that they do, and specifically the perspective that I see it from. So at KPMG, as with a number of other organisations, I get the pleasure, the honour of actually hiring a lot of young professionals. We hire a lot of people. We do have 800 roles open at the moment if anyone wants a job. But we do hire a lot of people, and I do hire a lot of Jewish people, and I do get to see a lot of people that actually come up through the ranks in that context. And at the same time, through my role in Yeshiva Beth Rivka, I get to see the kids that are finishing and have this world ahead of them, and it's really hard to navigate from a career perspective and then hopefully from an investment perspective over time. So I think that it is really good that there's an organisation that helps people to sort of mentor and actually navigate that. So well done to Moshe, to Zalman, to Brian, to Yossi and Yehuda, who's just left, and anyone else who I've missed who is involved. But thank you for coming and enjoy the night.
Thank you. I do want to mention, I didn't know Yehuda left, but we could pass on. This is on video. I want to thank Aura, because Aura sponsors a lot of our events, and it's incredible having people believe in what we do. So thank you, Aura, and Yehuda is on their board, so you're no doubt watching it. But thank you. I do want to make mention of some very special people who work tirelessly for YJP. Number one, Rabbi Yossi, who just joined our team. Don't be shy, Yossi, raise your hand. And it's great to have Yossi. Brian Berger, who's been my partner in crime for many years. And I then, before we introduce our guest speakers, there's someone to introduce them. That's why I haven't formally introduced them. But I do, Tony, Rebecca, and Alex, it's really wonderful to have you here. But our guest tonight to introduce Alex is a very dear friend of mine. She is a true YJP member. I want to just tell you something very proudly. Hannah, who's going to be introducing Helen, just had a beautiful baby. Not just, but Layla, a couple of months ago, so Mazel Tov. She's a wonderful mother. And I feel humbled and honored because Hannah met her dear, beautiful partner, Binyamin, who's no doubt babysitting tonight, at a YJP event, which for me is absolute success, okay? It is. I say that unbashfully. So she's a walking ambassador for YJP. So thank you so much. And please put your hand together. Hannah, for those who don't know, runs an incredible charity, Save a Child's Heart. She does great work. YJP has partnered Save a Child's Heart in a few events. We've got one coming up in August, which is well and truly in the making. And please put your hands together to Hannah, who's going to introduce our guest speaker, Alex.
Thank you. I've actually written down some words because I'm not as good off the cusp, but I do want to recognise YJP. Actually, the event I met my partner at was the first one I've ever been to, and I didn't know it would change my life forever, so I'm very grateful for what you do, and I guess I didn't recognise how important it was to turn up to these events because you never know who you're going to meet and where your life's going to go. But yeah, I've just written down some words about Alex, and I'm introducing him in a different perspective. I'm talking more about his work in giving back. He's going to talk a lot about what he does in his profession and his investments, but I want to talk about something that I believe is also important. So I've gotten to know Alex over the last 2 years at Save a Child's Heart. And as Jews, we speak about tikkun olam, and that it's our Jewish responsibility to repair the world. And I also think it's very important that when we hear about people's stories of success, that we learn about what they do to make the world a better place. So Alex does a lot outside of his profession for charities, whether it's his work with Global Citizen, which is the jacket you're wearing tonight, where he chooses and rewards 4 people from around the world fighting poverty with a total of $250,000 of funding between them. Or his work with Save a Child's Heart, which he's contributed $1 million over 10 years to train doctors. And he also is co-hosting our annual gala event and many other events that we do together. Alex, you go above and beyond, and I say that every year, most weeks, and he supports many other causes which he introduces to his friends, his families, his networks. And I just think, yeah, compassion is not only giving and giving financially, it's also giving with emotional energy and emotional support. And yeah, Alex, you go above and beyond for Tikkun Olam. Your passion for social change is really inspiring, and it's been a privilege to work with you for Save a Child's Heart, and I'm very excited for our gala in 3 weeks. We're getting there, and it's going to be an amazing event. So thank you for everything that you do, and thanks for speaking at YJP. I'm a young Jewish professional myself, and we like hearing from, inspirational speakers. And Moish, thank you, and the board, young leaders, thank you very much. Sorry, and Zalman? And Zalman, we love retail. Thank you.
Here we are.
You sure you're ready for this?
I'm ready. Bring it
So
on.
a little story behind this interview. Somehow or another, I got Alex Wise's mobile number, and I can't tell you how, but I got it. And I would text and invite him to all the events, and he'd be like, I can't make it this one, I can't make it that one. So he created an event with his face on it that Alex Wise is speaking. I'm like, Alex, surely you're going to make it to this one. And lo and behold, look who's sitting here.
Can only say no so often.
That's it. So Alex, we have a list of questions which came from a lot of our members and from myself personally, and I broke it up into a few categories, okay? So what I'd like to start with, first of all, is can you tell us a short story about a young person you've recently backed financially in their startup businesses?
Yes, there's, well, that is one of the things that we like to do at Thorny. And in fact, ever since I started Thorny, it's been all about backing people. So it's not a new phenomena for us, although there's a lot of new tech investments, new idea. But going back to the very beginning of Thorny, it was always how can we distinguish ourselves from the rest of the investment pool, the investment managers. And one of the things we identified early was, and I was always interested in people and the psychology behind them, what was driving them. So it was always something that we did, and half of the time we invest, we do the regular financial analysis, we look at the strategy and all of that. We do all of that as professionally as we can and got a team of analysts. But I myself tend to focus on the people involved. So I want to see their passion, I want to see their financial commitment, I want to see that they're 24/7 committed to the outcome, and other than their family, that's their priority. I want to see that they're surrounding themselves with good people, that they're confident but not arrogant, and they will listen, and they're open to debate, open to ideas. And that's a very big part of our understanding of what drives the business, where it can go, what can happen. Can they pivot? Can they change if something goes wrong? How sort of rigid are they in their thinking? So all of that is, I guess, a pretty exciting journey for us, because you're engaging with people, and I like to think I'm a people type of person, and you want to create friends and associations on the way. And that's one way of doing it, because you become more intimate involved in them. So I suppose one of the companies that we've invested not that long ago, and it's a huge success, but a lot of people ask us about it, is Afterpay, and I suppose Anthony Eisen and Nick Molnar. So he's probably one that we invested in reasonably early. And I'd known Anthony for a while through his previous employment, and we'd come across a few investments. I knew the guy he was working for, who's actually on the board of one of my companies. And I thought Anthony was a very smart guy, working diligently in the background of this organisation, not getting a lot of credit. And he ended up moving down to Melbourne because his wife's from Melbourne. He was working in Sydney. And I said to him, look, when you come down to Sydney, come and have a chat. And he came down for family reasons, not business. And I said, look, we've always got on well, and why don't you set up in our office? Why don't we do things together? Come and work with us. We'll work on projects. And he said, oh, that's very generous of you. That's kind. I don't know a lot of people in Melbourne, but I've got this little fintech on the side that a mate of mine, Nick, my next door neighbour in Sydney, is involved in. I might just give that a go for 3 or 4 months, and then I'll come back to you. So. Now it's worth, 30 billion or something like that in only 6-7 years, I think. It's been phenomenal. But as a result of that, I was able to parlay that conversation into a relatively early investment in Afterpay, and still quite a sizable investor, even though we've sold a lot on the way through. So I suppose some of the messages in that is whenever you come across someone who is smart, who is capable, don't lose contact with them. Maintain a contact, maintain a rapport. At some stage you'll cross paths again, or you'll encourage them. And the smart people, the energetic people, they keep resurfacing. They'll come up again, and if you stay in contact, then at some point in time you might have an opportunity to do something with them. And also, particularly, those who are dislocated. He had a family issue, his wife's family, and so on. And he was in need of a friend, in need of someone to talk to. And so make sure you reach out when it's appropriate, and be there for people. And that turned out to be a sort of a magnificent journey from that point of view.
In one sentence, what does it take to get your attention and trust for young people who want to come pitch you ideas?
Well, we've had different pitches in different ways. People have stopped me, jumped in front of the car, and I thought, oh, crikey, gonna hit them, and that got attention. Others have come through random ways. I mean, we have someone who we employed who just reached out through a cold call letter, and said,
Addressed to you?
Addressed to me.
Do you still open your mail?
I don't. Well, it was an email. He somehow found the email address, and it came through. And I remember I actually got a fabulous job in New York by doing the same thing. So I'm kind of open-minded to cold calls and fresh initiatives, because I remember myself being in a hole looking for a way to go, and I targeted someone in particular that I wanted to work for. I didn't have the experience. I had the desire. I didn't have the knowledge, but I was keen to learn, and I reached out, and I guess I was a bit cheeky. I said, I'm the person to open your New York office, and I'm ready to go. And if you want to play with the big boys, you should be in New York. So this is Australia's first billionaire at the time, a guy called Robert Holmes Accord, who's no longer with us. But he gave me a chance, and it turned out and worked out with a job. So I'm open-minded. So I employed this There's fellow Eric in our office who's been with us now for a couple of years, and it's turned out he's been very good. So attention comes in all different ways, through the right reference, through the right contact, and we're open-minded. We keep an open mind because good ideas come from left field, and if you've got, and I try to encourage our team to not be closed-minded, not be narrow, just think about it. And often it comes from a quirky, unusual source or a quirky, unusual person, and that's fine, because I know the standard approach from a regular sort of mechanism through a broker or a dealer or a banker, I mean, that will come to us anyway, but it'll also come to a lot of other people. We want to try and capture those that are not so easily found.
You're often pitched ideas, probably every day. What do you actually listen for when you're being pitched?
Well, I listen. Yes, it's true. Myself and the team, we get pitches, multiple pitches every day, actually, and we're in a lucky position. And in fact, things reversed for us. When I started off, of course, I had no money and no reputation, no anything, just hard work. And so I was out there searching and following down every lead crisscrossing the country at every occasion when I got a hint of something that was opportune. And in particular, I would go to sort of more, it was easy to go to Sydney or let's just stay in Melbourne, but everyone was there, and I didn't have the capital to compete with us. So I would go to Adelaide or Brisbane or spend a lot of time in Perth, even Tasmania, New Zealand, to try and find deals that were different. But so when you listen to the pitch, first of all, it's a lot about what I said before, the people who are driving the pitch and their passion. And if the genuine passion is there, that usually comes through, especially with, I guess, we've got experience to probe and to ask the right questions. And then I guess we listen to the nuances of what they're presenting. Is it a new idea? Is it a new tech, or is it a new twist on something? Is it real? Have we heard it before? So we just try to pick up on the story and see if the narrative actually makes sense and is consistent with something that we hear it from here, and can we see where it might go in years to come if the company got the right support.
Moving to more of a personal question now.
This sounds dangerous.
Yeah. Can you describe what it's like to marry into the wealthiest family in Australia? And
it was dangerous.
The wealthiest family in Australia. And how has your friendship and business circles treated you on the way in? And
well, I was working in that company initially, and then I met who later became my wife. So that was an interesting situation. And I left the job because I found that too difficult to do both, and I wanted to make sure there was integrity in the relationship. But I'd always focused on sort of what I wanted to do, which was in the investment game. They were in manufacturing. So it didn't change my desire or my focus on where I wanted to go. And it was an interesting journey. It was just what I really learned, particularly from Richard Pratt, who I became quite close to, and was very dynamic and inspirational person in my life. I was lucky enough to learn from that, because he was someone who was successful, but he still had a huge work ethic. He was literally up every morning at 4 o'clock, and he was at the factories by 5 o'clock in the morning, and would keep going all day. He'd basically live 2 days in one day. He'd sort of have a nap in the afternoon and go again, entertaining customers and doing other things at night. So I kind of learned that hard work is key. To dream big, he was a visionary. To back yourself, he had a lot of confidence. Get good people around you, which is what he did. And I tried to do some of those things as myself. But I guess the biggest thing was he inspired me to think big and I guess dream. But he was very good at the details as well. So he said, look after the day-to-day, but do your dreaming at night, and then come fresh in the morning and do your day-to-day again. So that was good, but it was sort of journey and experience. But it was also equally frustrating, because here I was starting a new business with no capital. I'd been living in New York for 6 years, so whatever experience I had was over there. I didn't have a network, and then wherever I went somewhere, there was always this perception that I had, I had this big business behind me. And so there's like, what are you coming here to raise money for? Why haven't you got your own? Why aren't they investing and doing it? So it was a constant battle about a perception of having capital and resources and network, and actually not having them, but trying to build them. So it was quite interesting first few years getting underway.
Do you have aspirations to be the president of the Collingwood Football Club?
Well, I think I've had a very happy journey at Collingwood in terms of we won one flag, which I guess I'm grateful for, and made a lot of people happy, and came close on others. But the truth is, like everything else, if you want to be the president, take the role at the top, you've got to put in the hours and the time, and it's a big commitment, and you probably have to put in, it's 15, 20, 25 hours a week, including during the season, the games. So really, I have other things that I'm doing as well, and I don't think I can commit to that. But I've been vice president for quite a number of years. It's been a terrific part. My family's come along, and we've had a lot of bonding around football. And I would say to everybody, make sure you're obviously focused on your business and whatever it is you're doing, your career, but make sure you have other hobbies, passions, areas of interest, and cross-pollinate them. Football in Melbourne in particular is very business associated. I've met a lot of business people through football, but it's also got the Collingwood Foundation, and I've supported that, and we've built a lot of, presence in the beyond immediate football in what we can do as a community. I'm particularly involved in a project there called Magpie's Nest, which is getting people off the street, the homeless, and putting them into safe housing where they can get social services. So I think make sure, everyone, that you think about other things in your life that you want to engage in, and then mix it all together, put it into a big melting pot, because you'll learn. You learn a lot from. I learned a lot from football, for example, from coaches like Mick Malthouse, about leadership, about team, about strategy, things like that, and it overflows back into your business. And I can put it back the same way. I help them with the finances, and I've got a lot of and built their strength, and the same with philanthropy. Philanthropy is a journey. If I could encourage everyone, I would say start early, start fresh, because it's going to add a lot to your life, and you'll actually feel very much rewarded of it. If you can't put the money in, that's fine. Volunteer someone, or get an understanding. Maybe you can be a director of whatever it is. Maybe you can volunteer at whatever the organisation is, a certain amount of time a week, and bring your friends, because it's such a great thing to share the experience. And as you progress through your career, and you can afford to do philanthropy in a different way, then that's also a great journey. But get the basis of it early, and then you'll feel really good about what you can do. And each and every one of you can make a difference. One person, one voice can really have an impact. So no, I don't want to be the president of the Collingwood Football Club, but I'm happy to stay engaged, and it really has given my life another dimension. And I do still feed off the energy of the players, and sort of fit, healthy, 18, 20-year-old people running around at their peak of their physical powers. And it's kind of like, to me, they're all sort of gladiators and hero-like figures, because I could never get a kick when I was playing football, but even though I was hoping so. But we went to a Jewish school, so it was, our coach, he gave up trying tactics. All he said was, okay, future accountants in the forward line, future lawyers in the back line, and any doctors or dentists, you can be in the middle. So that was the extent of our football strategy. And needless to say, we didn't win any games.
On a more serious note, what are your views about Eddie Maguire's recent exit from the club?
Well, Eddie's a great friend of mine. We've been mates for a long time, and we were fans together, and started to socialise around the clubs, and I became a sponsor. And he said to me, he goes, look, this was 20 odd years ago, he said, in 5 or 10 years, we definitely got to have a go get on the board, and we can make a difference. And then 6 months later, he said, we're on the bottom of the ladder, we're broke. The AFL won't talk to us. They just want to take us, they would just want to control us, and now's our time. So suddenly we were thrust into this journey together. So I've got a lot of time for Eddie, because we've had a long involvement together in football and around. And I think that, Eddie is a public figure, and I think he's not as well understood from being that public figure and the persona as he is. He's got a big heart. He's very compassionate. Even the Save a Child Heart that we talked about, he volunteered to, as part of an auction item, to host a lunch and so on. So he's done an enormous amount of charitable giving and community giving. He's been very dynamic as the head of the club, and it's been fun to go on the journey alongside him. I think it was, to me, it was a bit sad and unfortunate the way it went so abruptly that he left. And I think that I was disappointed in that. But Eddie's a resilient character, and I'm sure he'll bounce back. We'll see him a lot all over the place. So, and he still, retains his love for Collingwood. So he's now just going to the games, and I think he's enjoying being a fan. So, I've got a lot of time for him, and I'll stick by him.
Good. Just switching the conversation to your religion. You're Jewish, yes?
I am.
Good. What does that mean to you, and how has that formed you into the person you are today?
I think it's a dramatic influence on my life. My parents were immigrants to Australia, having been thrown out, and their parents and family, those who survived from war-torn Europe. So it's had a profound effect on my family's life, as it has on many Jewish families who arrived in Australia. They came, it was a difficult journey as an immigrant for them. And they had to rebuild a life. They had to work very hard. There was not a lot to go around. I remember our first house renting was a half house with another family, and so on and so forth. So a lot of sacrifices they made on behalf of my sister, my brother, and myself. But throughout it all, they weren't religious, but they retained what I call strong traditional Jewish values, which is about giving and charity when you've got. Education, learning is a way to lift yourself and to better yourself in the future. So there was big focus on education there. Their big dream was to send us all to a private school, which they did, a Jewish school, which we learnt more, I guess, of the values there. And yes, very big influence on my life. I have a close attachment to Israel. I go there quite regularly. I still got family there. Do quite a lot of tech investing over there because it's such a vibrant and stimulating hub. So, and I've tried to pass those same type of values on to my family and to my kids. So it's caring, work hard, be a good community contributor, and share family time.
So growing up, your parents were not billionaires?
If only.
Yeah. So how are you bringing up your children differently to the way that you were brought up?
Well, it's kind of interesting. My parents on my father's side were actors in the old Jewish Yiddish theatre.
In Melbourne?
In Vilna in Eastern Europe, and then my father was here at the invitation of the Jewish community, and that's how he landed when the war broke out in Poland, where the rest of the family was, and that's how we ended up here. He was managed to get visas sponsored by some members of the Jewish community. My mother's family actually were more in business. They were successful grain traders in Poland, lost everything throughout the war, and made their way to Israel and started a commercial enterprise there as well. So it was sort of a mixed background, but lots of stories on both sides. So I was sort of imbued with the literature and culture on the one hand from my father's side. Ironically, he became a businessman later. And on my mother's side, sort of more on business endeavours. And ironically, she became a classical pianist in her early days. So they kind of overlapped. But no, it was very humble beginnings, and it was very tough. But they always maintained a good, happy household. There was always music and friends. But it was working hard, and we saw, real sacrifice. It was literally 6-7 days a week work. There was no money for holidays. That holiday for us was going down to Frankston or something like that. It wasn't going overseas or anything like that until later, as they got a bit more success. So now, my kids are in a fortunate position. We're in a fortunate position now that we can do those things that are more on the top end of the scale. But I've tried very hard and hope I'm successful. I don't know. Time will tell. To just teach them the basics. So be sensible, be commonplace, be humble, don't be flamboyant, work hard, get your education, cultivate your friends, and so on. So it's not complicated, it's simple, but it just needs to be reinforced and reinforced. And time will tell whether I got that right or wrong. In fact, a couple of them here, maybe you'll ask them yourself and see how we've gone on that journey. But I think that's to me has been a central theme in my life. My kids are making sure that they've had, hopefully, instilled some good values from myself and their mother.
You're quite famous for your involvement in cryptocurrency and blockchain, right?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that famous, or maybe infamous.
You are to me. How would you explain cryptocurrency and blockchain to a 5-year-old?
Probably a 5-year-old can explain it better than me, but they seem more adept. Look, there's a lot of technologies that we're invested in, and I think the interesting thing, first of all, before I get into that, is that at Thorney, which is the name of our company, Thorney Investment Group, we're not experts in anything. We've taken the broad, general knowledge kind of approach. Starting off 30 years ago when I started Thorney, I decided not to be a super specialist in something. It didn't suit my personality because I'm a kind of a curious person. I'm interested in everything. I'm an absorber of information. I'm a seeker of information. So my view was the principles of business are the same throughout. Doesn't matter if it's a startup or a later stage tech or an industrial company or a real estate company. To me, 80%, 85% of the same principles apply to making a success. And the rest of it, we decided that we'll build our working knowledge, but we'll get expertise in as needed so we can understand the nuances that apply to most businesses. And we've parlayed that into investing in probably every industry that is out there, including many new industries to us that we didn't have a history necessarily in. Life sciences and space technology we're looking at now, mining companies, mining services companies, and so on. So as it relates to blockchain and crypto, I guess we're observant to some of the trends through traveling and talking, and we've seen sort of the movement and the emergence of sort of blockchain technology and cryptocurrencies, and we've seen the sort of boom and bust that they've gone through, and often our experience has been, being second into the game, like in property. Let someone build it first, maybe come in second after they've had all the pain and costs and the overruns and whatever it is, and you might be able to buy it when it's cheaper or when that technology is more proven and more stable. So certainly blockchain was something that I believed in because basically it's a sort of a database. You're storing electronically information. It's done in obviously large scale, so it's groups or blocks. And then as that block fills up, then you get another block and they're connected, and then hence the blockchain. And it's all done in a chronological kind of sequence. And with decentralized ledgers, then you can see the more transparency of transactions and the authenticity of data and so on. So, and within that ecosystem, then cryptos have emerged as virtual or digital currencies. And and sort of we followed the thematic. So yes, we've played around in a couple of the different cryptos, but really I took also another philosophy or approach that we took when I started also with the mining industry. So I said, okay, I'm going to employ a geologist, but my background is not geology, and I don't really have a deep knowledge of what will be the rock formation or the ore body or the vein, how it's tracking. But what I realized was reading from history about the mining industry that you can make a ton of money being in mining services. The engineers, the providers of equipment, providers of manpower, and so on. So whilst, yes, we did small investments in mining companies, we did big investment in mining services companies. And it didn't have the same boom-bust kind of operating dynamics. And you could still make multiples of your money, and there were many unlisted and listed companies that we stumbled across. So I've kind of taken the same approach with in the crypto space. So we've invested in crypto exchanges. A few years ago, we invested in one called Banxa, an Australian group, and they recently listed on the Toronto Stock Exchange, on the venture exchange called Banxa. So that is one that takes advantage of the momentum and the transactional volume as volumes increase. So is it going to go up the same way Bitcoin has gone up, which has come off its lowest probably 10 times? Well, the truth of the matter, it has gone up 10 times. We invested about 50 cents, and now it's $6. It was $1 at listing just in January, now it's $6 Canadian. So you can actually make a lot of money without the same risk profile if you're watching the thematic. And we've invested in a few crypto miners, which is sort of mining the algorithms and so on, getting paid in Bitcoin, but they transact the Bitcoin back into fiat currency, in US dollars or whatever, straight away. But we can see that, again, that volume, that momentum, and we'll do quite well in that investment, and we've done a series of these. So we're not an expert, we kind of get the dynamic of the place. We've invested in a crypto fund manager because we can see the excitement. They're the experts in trading it, but we've invested in the sort of head companies, so we take advantage of that. So I guess when we find a space that we think is interesting, that the world will get onto as well, because it's getting more and more popular, more and more legitimized through eventually transactions. Look for what's surrounding. It's like in the property space, you know, if you're going to build a big shopping center, you want to buy around it as well, because the whole value equation is going to go up. And we do that in property as well. So if you've got a lead or an anchor, then see what's around that you can also ride the same momentum. So, but I'm far from an expert.
My son Abby's here. He's 9. He's the closest to a 5-year-old. Did you understand anything he said? No. I'm 38.
At 9 years old, you already should be in the position to forget everything your father's told you. So that's the one lesson I can give you if you want success.
So I'm 38 years old. How do you explain to a 38-year-old how to make money on crypto?
Well, exactly what I just said. Invest in the exchanges.
Like specific tips or companies?
Well, Banxa is one, if you want to have a look at that. Iris Energy, Cosmos, these are all crypto miners. And, you know, I don't really want to talk about individual one, because they're the ones that can probably stuff up, and then you'll never forgive me and I'll keep getting calls every week. But no, but I think you just got to be around it. If you want to trade in the currencies, just be aware of the volatility, right? So you've got to do that. Are you there for a quick gain? Are you there for a long haul? Is it something you're going to allocate a certain percentage of your wealth? It depends on how you're going to approach it. There's going to be new cryptos coming up all the time. But the thing is, as we've seen, I think the blockchain is not going away. I believe it's going to be a central theme as we go forward.
Will it take out traditional banks?
It won't take out traditional banks, but it'll take some business away from them.
Will traditional banks go to cryptocurrency?
They may, but I think what you might find is countries themselves, sovereigns themselves, may issue a cryptocurrency. So you might get an Aussie Reserve Bank, an Aussie dollar-backed cryptocurrency, or a euro-backed or a US dollar-backed, and they might end up being the dominant currencies, and they may overcome a Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever over time. It could be that, because and that'll be more regulated than the current environment, and people may get comfort in that. So I don't think traditional banks are going to disappear. However, they are being challenged on many, many fronts, and we recognise that theme as well, and that's why we've invested in a lot of fintech companies, particularly in Australia, where it's been a sort of a cosy environment for the four lead banks. And you talk to them and you understand them, and even though they say they are changing and they've got a lot of new technology coming, they're nowhere near agile enough to keep up with the fast changes in the world. And that's why, and they're really setting themselves up for failure. And that's why Anthony Eisen and Buy Now, Pay Laters and all the other things are coming and really taking market share from them. So banks today are different from banks from 20 years ago, and will be different again in 10 or 20 years' time for sure.
Who would you bet will be the first country to get onto this train?
Which
This
train?
cryptocurrency train. If a country was
Well,
to
I
do
think
it,
China's been talking about it, so I think, and you know, people have a conspiracy theory, it's part of undermining the US dollar and everything there, but I think you'll see some of those companies. But I think as it becomes more mainstream, as regulators are forced to interfere to legitimize it further, you'll see every country embracing it in some form or another.
what's the single biggest mistake you've made?
Speaking publicly and giving tips. No, look, I think where we've made mistakes is probably to do too many deals at one time and spread ourselves too thin. So we're constantly challenging ourselves to cull the portfolio because and measure things and say, look, this can't be as good. Everything can't have equal upside potential. So challenge the people in the team to do that. But I think we've had a couple of investments in companies, and we lose money every day on deals. But fortunately, we've had a lot more that go up. So we don't have all the answers, and we make mistakes all the time. But we also push the envelope, you know, and we're trying pretty hard. So where we've made biggest mistakes is probably not doing our own work and relying on others. So especially a couple of times early on, we've had some big name investors that we assumed that they'd done the thorough due diligence. We assumed that they were on top of the management and were really kind of involved actively. And then when we made our investment and got into it and heard of troubles, and we really made a mistake not doing our own work and really assessing and taking the responsibility on ourselves, not relying on others, no matter how big their name is necessarily, that you would assume that they're on top of it. So yes, we get recommendations. Yes, we might invest alongside people, but we've learned that we've got to do a certain amount of work ourselves before we do anything than just a token investment.
And what's the single biggest win you've had in all your years?
Oh, we've been lucky enough to have quite a lot of 10 times our money investments or more. But I think one off the top of my head, and some people may know this company called Hub. Has anyone heard of Hub, or used to be called Hub 24? Sorry.
The co-working?
No, Hub, which is a investment platform for funds under management. So this was a very small company when we came across it, probably 6, 7, 8 years ago, and it had an interesting technology which we had met the coders who had in a previous investment, and they were onto this new thing, and they were challenging the banks and the large superannuation platforms. It also had a brokerage business which was losing money. So both businesses were losing money, but it was pretty interesting. The funds under management on the platform were maybe $40 or $50 million over at the time. But we looked at the technology and we could see that it had potential. It was more attuned to what we thought was the way financial planners, accountants, and the super industry was going. And we liked, as I said before, the thematics, what can be big. We liked the fact that superannuation was going up, and we knew there was a ton of money coming down the superannuation pipeline. So if we could get a platform that was flexible and serviceable, we thought that could be huge tailwinds behind it. So we got in there, and actually we were an activist in that one. We forced them to sell off the investor broker business, stick with the platform. We thought that was the future. And I think we bought in at maybe 18 cents a share, 20 cents a share. We became the largest shareholder. So 7 years later, there's $50 billion on the platform. From 50, the company is worth north of $1 billion, I think $1.6 billion maybe, market cap. We're still the largest shareholder, even though we've sold down. Probably got over $100 million still position. We've got zero cost base, taking our money off on the way. So that, I think we've made 100 times our money, maybe.
What's the share price now?
The share price is from 20 cents is $25.
Jeez.
So don't underestimate the wealth you can have from equity investments. The share market is fraught with danger if you don't understand it, but full of opportunity if you do understand it.
Wow. You've clearly reached significant financial success, yet you go to work every single day. So when's it going to be enough money?
Well, I go to work not for the money, to be honest. Been lucky enough that I've got choice now. I continue to do what I do because, as I said before, I'm curious and I like the stimulation of learning and seeing particularly new technologies now. I honestly think this is probably the most exciting time in history to be an investor. The amount of new ideas that are out there, the connectivity of the world, so that immediately ideas are potentially global. You've got an immediate export market straight from the bat. You've got a great entrepreneurial environment emerging even in Australia, which maybe wasn't that traditionally across a lot of industries other than perhaps the mining industry. And it's a fabulous time. If you look at what's been created in the last decade, companies that never been heard of, that are worth tens and tens of billions of dollars, and we're all aware of them. And even in this last throughout COVID, I didn't know about Zoom before that happened, and now nobody doesn't know about Zoom. So I like it because it's a fresh environment. There's so many ideas, so much potential. I go to work for the stimulation of the new ideas and the challenge of being part of it, and the challenge of and the excitement of saying, how can our experiences collected over 30 years interact with a young entrepreneur to help them be successful and be part of that journey? So in a sense, of course, we want financial success. I don't want to lose money doing it. But in a way, that's a byproduct, and we measure that, obviously. But it's really what we can create and what businesses we can be part of, and what changes we can be part of, and what efficiencies, because that is kind of the environment that we're at now. So high utilization through platforms that connect and do that, and I think it's great. So that's what I go to work for, and I like it every day, and so I'm enthusiastic about it. It doesn't mean I'm in the office physically every day, but I'm connected every day, and I think about it all the time because it's fun. And I think if you can find something that really motivates you and you get enjoyment out of your work and your peer group and the colleagues you collect on the way, to me that's sort of the golden ticket. So I've been lucky enough to build that over time. So why would I stop? Yes, I've got time to travel, but even when I travel, I go to Israel. I'll instead of lying on the beach, I go and have meetings with 10 tech companies. Come back at night and said, yeah, "What the hell happened?" But I enjoyed the day because I'm stimulated, right? And I think intellectual stimulation is a great luxury, and I think that that's what I do it for.
What stresses you out?
What stresses me out? I guess I don't like failure. I don't like when people don't deliver on what they say they're going to do. I don't like when there's people are tricky or devious. I like transparency and openness. I don't like when Collingwood loses. That's definitely stressful. So all of those things. But I think I handle stress pretty well. I guess you can't be in this environment, in this investing environment, if you get too stressed. You've got to work out, what you can sleep at, what environment you can sleep, and what sort of risk you can manage. I guess, there's always stress around your kids and your family about things there. But generally, I think I handle stress pretty well. Actually, what I'm not good at is when things are steady state. So I get a bit bored, and I get a bit. So then my job is to stir the pot and agitate and see if I can create stress for others, and then I'm happier, I think. So my late father-in-law said, "I don't get ulcers, I give ulcers."
Where do you get your motivation and inspiration from?
Look, as I say, I get motivation from new ideas and fresh people and fearless people who have got energy to have a go. I've read a lot, and about different business people and leaders, not only in business, in philanthropy and through the military, politics, science, other things. So a lot of people in that regard motivate me. People who are humble but successful. As you see, many soldiers and so on. The other day at Collingwood, actually, we had on Anzac Day a double amputee from Afghanistan who was talking and highly motivational and talked about rebuilding his life. I mean, you can't help but getting inspired by someone like that and moved. Save a Child Heart, the people who are operating life and death surgeries on children. I mean, you go and spend half a day there or a day there, and you'll come out completely motivated, inspired to do what you can to help and change the world and support those sort of people. I like people who are pushing the boundaries, people like Richard Branson, who's probing space and Virgin Galactic. I've actually signed up to go for a flight into space. I wish it was tomorrow, I'm excited. Elon Musk, these people, they're pushing the envelope. You can't not admire that. People like Warren Buffett, you talked about me still going to work. I mean, he's 90, still going to work every day and creating big sort of investment opportunities and magnificent sort of success. So there are plenty of people that definitely inspire me, and I look forward to hopefully meeting some of them at some point in time. And when you do meet them, it's terrific, and it's sort of very humbling. It is sort of like, is this possible from a kid from the suburbs meeting this kind of people? So anything is possible. I don't believe in impossible, and I challenge everyone around me always in that regard. So I think you can achieve almost anything in this world if you dream and if you work hard. And if you put your heart and soul into something, it doesn't matter what it is you want to achieve, you can do it. And as I said earlier on, make sure you think bigger than smaller, but also manage the bite-sized steps that are needed.
In one sentence, how do you calculate risk?
One sentence. As I said, well, sleep at night. What can make you sleep at night comfortably? Because if you can't handle the heat, then get out of the kitchen. So when I went to Harvard to study further education, the business school there, and I had a professor who was teaching about risk, actually. So he gave me probably the best metaphor for how to handle risk. He said, imagine you're on a branch of a tree, and if you can hold and wrap your hands around the trunk of the tree, then you're not someone who wants a lot of risk, if that's your comfort area. So that's like investing in government bonds or keeping your money in the bank. But just imagine every step away that you take from the trunk of the tree is a higher risk or a different asset class that you might go into. So everybody's got to work out how far from that trunk you're prepared to step. Obviously, as you go further out, it gets shakier, it gets wonkier, and if you go right at the end, you'll fall. So where do you want to be? Where do you want to be? Where do you want to be?
Where do you
I know
stand?
where you want to be, but
Where do you stand on the tree?
Well, I definitely don't stand near the trunk, but and at various times I've been swinging like that. But I think and I look back and I say I probably took too much risk at various stages, but hopefully they're calculated risks. It's not just black or red. It's for a well-defined reason, a well-analyzed reason, a well-developed sort of thesis behind it. But I'm certainly not right at the edge anymore, although we do some things there, but not far back from it.
The older and more successful you get, are you coming closer in?
Probably not, but we've sort of got more with a bigger portfolio now, so you can spread the risk amongst certain things. And what I make sure to do, and I encourage you, is just don't make sure whatever it is that you're investing in doing, don't let anything bring the house down. You know, so take a risk, but take it on a smaller amount, so that it can have still plenty of upside. But if it goes wrong, or something backfires, or it's delayed, or the inevitable problems, just make sure it doesn't wipe you out completely. Have courage, but do it sensibly.
Just to finish up, and again in one sentence, but really one sentence this time, what would your one sentence of advice be to everyone in this room?
Well, I would say follow your dream. If you have a dream, and if you've got a path, then I'd encourage you just to move faster than slower. Have a go.
That's a paragraph.
That's a paragraph, but I'll continue anyway. And because I think it's important to and recognise the world has changed. I mean, in the old days when I was growing up, even though I didn't stick to it, most people say you chose your career and you were pretty much stuck with that. That's what you did for 30 years or 40 years. So first of all, you're going to live longer. It's legitimate now to have 3 or 4 or 5 different careers. So one platform leads to another one. But at that right point in time, when you're hesitating, not sure whether to make the transition, take the plunge, you know, have a go. And I think for the most part, you'll sort it out once you have the courage to have a try. So can we have a few questions from anyone in the audience,
if
there is?
Thank you very much for tolerating me.
We're going to open up from the floor if anybody has questions, and I'll come over with the mic. Anybody? Don't be shy, one at a time.
Hi everyone, I'm Jordan. Yeah. Considering you manage many things in your life as well as family, health, keeping fit, how do you manage that with your time? Especially like a young professional, we work quite long hours, we get burnt out, but obviously we have to look after our own mental health and physical health. Yeah,
it's a good question. I mean, well, sleep less and I probably sleep about 5 hours a night maybe. Sort of got used to that. But I think everything's a balance. You've got to get that right. At various times in your life, you just have to go on a lot of energy, put in the commitment, but put it in perspective so you understand that, and you know, put yourself an end date that you're going to work at that sort of pace on. Never give up on your fitness and health. That's obviously got to be your priority. You know, your health is your wealth in one line. So that's obviously a priority. For me, family is a priority as well, and work is the focus around that. But I think you have to do it in a way that you feel refreshed mentally, even though you may be tired physically. So learn techniques or study techniques that can help you really get the benefit of the downtime you've got. Now, for some people it's exercise, for some people it's listening to music, other people meditate, other people do boxing and sort of a high energy thing. Work out what works for you is my best suggestion. But and when you find that and you're conscious of it, then the balance comes back. The other thing is being as efficient as you can. So yes, you have to work hard, but make sure you're working hard, smart as well as hard. And I think and you get caught up in a cycle, and make sure you take some time out to work out, are you being as efficient as you can? How can I be more efficient? And run that by other people who are close to you. Maybe they can see something that you haven't picked up because you're too close into it, and maybe they can identify how you can be more efficient or focused on what you're doing, and therefore freeing up more time. Still being as effective, but more efficient.
Someone texted me a question. If they've got $20,000, right, and they want to invest right now, what do you recommend they do?
Well, Zelman said I should put it with him, so someone asked me that before. So, look, I think, invest in me, Thorny Technologies and Thorny Opportunities. So we'll do our best to look after you. I don't know. That's not an easy question. Depends if are you prepared to lose the 20? Is it something you want to get a certain return on? with investing, I think you've got to decide, am I looking for a 5% return, 1%, 10%, or something beyond? So with every investment and your whole portfolio that you build, you've got to have that in the back of your mind. You know, what are you looking for? So there may be some, you know, high risk, high return bets you're prepared to put on, but is it for the full 20,000? I don't know. I avoided giving a tip there. Well, that was good.
Hi, my name is
That's my
Marina
son. That's my
Gertzberg.
daughter. Yeah. Say that again, sorry?
My name is Marina Gertzberg, and I would like to understand a little bit more about how you select the entrepreneurs who you are backing. I think in the beginning you were saying it was really interesting that you look more at the grit and how much people already invested in their businesses, so whether they bootstrapped and so on and so forth. And if you have a business that doesn't have any profits, so that is inherently very difficult to value, you have to rely on some experience and characteristics that you think that will lead to success. And in that you could end up selecting based on very certain characteristics. So are there certain demographics that the people share who you select for backing, especially in the seed capital stage, in the seed investment stage?
There's a lot of companies we invest in that have no profit, no revenue. They have a vision and they have a story, so and a belief. So why would we invest in something along those lines? First of all, as I said, we wouldn't invest totally in that to the cost of everything else we have in the portfolio. But there are many companies that, as I said, we do invest in them. So why do it at all? Because the upside is potentially huge if in the various space, if we believe that. So we've got to believe in the upside is there. We've got to believe that it is something that is different to whatever is already out there trying to capture that market share. We've got to believe in the people. Usually, if we don't know the people, we have to sort of verify or validate their background. And we've got to know that they've committed their body and soul and every spare financial cent that they have to put in the business. We like to know that they've got their family or friends to invest already. So there's a large commitment and responsibility in that regard, and we've got to relate to that person and relate to the vision and what they think they can achieve. So I wouldn't say there's a complete formula. A lot of it is our experience or our intuition and our feel. And then we will invest accordingly. We might invest a little bit just to watch how it goes. And if it gets to a certain milestones or critical steps or hurdles that we've identified and that we've maintained the communication, the dialogue, so we've gone on that journey, we'll invest more or a second round, or we'll bring other people alongside us. So, and in the areas that we think that will make a difference in terms of success. So we've invested in life sciences companies, drug technology companies, medical devices, things like that. Life sciences is a long journey for drug discovery or something that can make an impact. So you analyze the sector, you analyze the technology, other patents that they've got solid. We'll get some doctors or medical experts to help us check that out. And many other areas like that. There's no guarantees. We understand the risks profile, and again, as I said before, understand the risks that you're entering, and then you'll get less surprises. And transparency, communication, very important parts of that step in early investing.
So I think my question was more whether there are certain socio-demographic characteristics that those entrepreneurs share that you select. So do they have, for example, a certain education? Is it always people who have a business background? Is it always average
it's
age,
not,
gender?
It's not. We find yes, we understand those who have come through a more traditional background. Not necessarily our favourite investors to back. We like people who are really hungry. We don't care the background. We want to know they're sort of smart and they're driven. Being driven, I think, and really hungry for success is a big part of it. And we, also that they're open to a good conversation. If they're arrogant and they think they know all the answers, and we don't feel we can be an influencing voice on them in one way or other, then we'll probably walk away. If they're confident, but as I said, humble earlier, and will communicate and share, then that's more likely to get outcome. If they come from overseas or wherever, it doesn't matter to us. Religious background doesn't matter to us. Socioeconomic standing doesn't matter to us. So we're open. And we talk about the crypto space. I mean, everyone we know in that space is pretty quirky characters, and if you met them in a cafe, you may not even talk to them, or you'd probably avoid them. But they're hellishly smart, and they understand that world. And to be an entrepreneur, to go out on a limb, to some extent, you're pushing the envelope, and that's reflected in the personalities as you see them. So that's fine. We don't have a problem with that. But we also may recognise that they can only take the company to a certain level, and then afterwards you may need to bring in more professionalised management to build out the foundations of the company in a more organised manner. I mean, this is the thing you see in Israel, for example. They're fabulous entrepreneurs. They're fearless, but they're not necessarily great at building out their whole organisation. After time, they tend to turn over and sell out at various points, especially the entrepreneurs from about 10 years ago. It's changing a little bit now, but they've all come out of the army, for example, all highly educated as a result of the army in technology. None of them have had formal training necessarily in terms of university, but they're fearless because compared to the army, they're prepared to take a risk, and they're not prepared. A business risk is a small risk. And also the other thing is the cultural environment is, and it's changing somewhat in Australia, but in Israel, for example, in the US, there's entrepreneurship is really encouraged. In Israel, you're almost ostracized if you don't have a go at something. Australia is changing, and I hope it changes faster and better, because it's the entrepreneurs who bring out the new businesses, the game changers, the exciting stories. So, but we totally take an open-minded approach to that.
Anyone else?
Hi, I'm Jay. I work in a startup and pursuing voice acting on the side. I had a interesting thought about the importance of confidence with your voice and presentation, particularly around when you're pitching. And I thought it might be...
Just say that last bit again.
I find it interesting, how you were talking a fair bit about the importance of confidence with your voice when you're pitching and presentation style, etc. I thought it'd be an interesting question to ask. Has there ever been a time when someone's pitched to you that hasn't been confident, or the pitch perhaps derailed partway through, but for whatever reason or reasons, you ended up investing in them anyway?
Yes, there has been. And one example I can think of is pretty much in the early days of Thorny, when I was on one of my trips across to Perth. I went to see a very small public company run by a man called John Rubino. John Rubino was an Italian immigrant to Australia, and I literally could only understand about 1 in every 4 words that he said. So, and it was, and he'd come to this country, and he was laying cement and bricklaying and doing piping and so on. But he'd taken control of a small public company with a group of other Italians, and he just had, when I went to see him, he told this story about where he thought there was a gap in the mining services side of things, and at that stage the mining industry was starting to boom, and nobody would back him because he didn't really know anyone. He was coming from pretty humble beginning, but he had such a steely determination in his eye, and we went to talk to some of his customers and clients to find out what's this all about, and they all said the same thing: very hardworking, very honest. If he says he's going to finish the job by this day, he'll literally work day and night on the job to finish the project. always pays his bills. His sort of Italian background, so I think everyone was too scared to not pay him his bills. I was certainly on my best behaviour seeing him. And a family man, but working hard. And I met some of his other people. So we ended up backing him. And I think he had 25 employees at the time. This company, he's now the chairman of the company. It's got 6,000 people. It's it's a multi-billion-dollar company that he's built, and he's probably one of the wealthiest men in Australia himself now from that success. So he couldn't speak English properly. He couldn't explain the whole vision clearly, but people around him and with him did. But in that case, there was something about him. He was confident, and he was warm, and he was embracing, and he invited us, myself and a colleague, to his house to eat with his wife and his young kids at the time. And that was something that showed me that his work was his family was his work. This was everything to him. He was proud that he got to this point, and it just felt right to back him. But we double-checked, as I said, by talking to his customers and some of his suppliers, and that just reinforced it. And I've been an investor for many, many years with him, 20 years, and have had a great success. Still today, and he's an investor in some of my deals, and he's become a very good personal friend.
Has his English improved?
His English has improved. Now I can understand one in every second word.
We have time for one more question. Yep.
Hi, Alex. I'm also Alex.
It's your theatre.
You're kind of talking about culling your portfolio and almost trimming. I guess my question is what's your kind of risk profile in, would you trim from your profits, or would you more kind of trim from your losses in that sense? Like, would you, if something's falling down, are you more likely to hold on to it hoping it eventually rebound, or are you more likely to just drop it there?
Well, I think it's a classic mistake of most people, and we're guilty of it sometimes too, is to sell your profits and to ride your losses. I think psychologically it's just harder to cut the loss and accept the loss, and more people seem to get less joy from their successes and more pain from the losses. They seem to focus and blame everyone and concentrate on that. So we're guilty to some degree of that, and I suppose my attitude to that is there's no real bad businesses. We think generally there's bad managers. A good manager will turn a business around, twist it, pivot it, take it into another direction. So often if something goes down or if we're losing money, if we've assessed it and we think that it's still got potential, we might invest more and we might work with it. And in fact, we've had some of our best successes in turning around companies that have otherwise been seen to fail or be almost broke. And that's a skill we've got, and it's a hardiness we've got, and a resilience, and it's a sort of never say die approach, and it's a hate to lose approach that we've got. But having said that, there are companies that we should have got out and cut our losses earlier, because that takes a lot of time and effort to do a turnaround. But what we have been good at is riding our profit. So if we find a good management team, like John Rubino that I just talked about in Monadelphous, we've had the wherewithal to stay with them and back the winners. So a hub that I mentioned, we're still a very big shareholder, even though it's 100 times bigger, because we still see a lot of growth. So we will sometimes cut something that's successful if it's maybe too big a position or it's gone up too quickly, but we'll leave ourselves open to, if there's a correction in the market or something comes back, if we believe in the company, we'll buy back what we've sold. So we'll play around the edges, but generally we will ride our winners for multiple years. And I've seen a lot of my peers, a lot of my friends who have sold out too early on potential winners, and they've left a lot on the table in doing that. And if it's a winner and it's got the right characteristics, the right people, the right business position, the right model, whatever it is, I would, for the most part, stay with it and keep it going until such time as something changes on that equation.
Is Thorny hiring at the moment?
We're always hiring, we're always firing.
What are you looking for right now? There's a room full of young people.
Well, we're looking for the person who's the bravest and most fearless and wants to work the hardest, but also
He's
have the
sitting on
most
your
fun.
left. Sorry? Well, my left. Alex, thank you. Really, that was beyond incredible. I do want to make a quick mention, before, and I'm going to formally thank you in 30 seconds, but Michael, who's got the very cool hat, is the one who facilitated today's venue, so thank you, Michael. He's got a few awesome venues, but thank you, Michael. I also want to once again thank Daniel for agreeing to do it at KPMG, even though we didn't eventuate over there, but thank you. We look forward to going back to KPMG. I want to thank Yossi over there. Yossi's going to call you during the week. Pick up that cold call. Say hi to him. He's got incredible events going on the YGP banner. We want to keep you involvement. We want to keep you engaged, involved, and inspired. Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Hannah. And thank you, Zalman. You've done an incredible job. And now to Alex.
And I want to thank Zalman as well. I know you're not feeling well tonight, so he got up and still came to the event and hosted it. So thank you, Zalman.
Thank you, Zalman. I should say before I thank you, I should say that Zalman and Josh and Tang over there have just started their own company, Angel's Property. We love retail. If you have a store, if you want to lease a store, if you want to have a property, buy it, sell it, he's your man, okay? And Joey Eckstein, if you're in Eastern Kilda, you want to buy a house or Caulfield, then go to Joey. But in the city, go to Zalman. I've got a lot of people. There's a lot of YGPs I'm trying to accommodate. But Alex, here's a little presented to Alex Wise on behalf of Young Jewish Professional. Thank you for your inspiring presentation and workshop on calculated risk, where you continue to go from strength to strength. And here's a book that inspired me, hopefully will inspire you to keep growing. Thank you all so much. That concludes the formalities. Thank you. We look forward to seeing you at all of our next events, please.
And thanks very much, everyone, for taking the time out tonight. And it was a pleasure being here. And Moshe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Zalman
And
again.
Rebecca, thank you for coming. And Tony, thank you.